Hey, it's Scott for FamilyWheels.ca with another car review for your growing family. And this filthy beast is the 2019 Honda Insight Hybrid Touring. Now, I promise it hasn't been this dirty all week. We're just up in Whistler for the weekend, brought the family up here for a bit of fun and brought the Insight along with us. And of course, snowy roads make for dirty cars. Now, on the topic of looks, you may be thinking to yourself, gosh, this car looks an awful lot like a Civic sedan. And there's good reason for that. The Insight almost is a Civic sedan. It was built on the same platform and shares a lot of its parts. The main difference, of course, being that this guy is a hybrid. And to a lot of people, that would give it a leg up over its traditionally motivated counterparts. But how does it compare to the rapidly growing and evolving hybrid market? There's tons of stuff coming out in this area. And even more so, how does it do when you get the kids and the pets and all the gear inside? Let's go check it out. So the Insight is another one of these models that Honda seemed to have been toying with for a while. It was here, then it was gone, then it came back, left again for a few years, and is now back again for this, the third generation 2019 model. Honda have also played with a couple of different styles here as well. You remember the first gen? It was a very obvious, look at me, I'm a hybrid, who cares how ugly I am because I'm good for the environment looking thing. Then came the second generation, which to me was basically an attempt at imitating the genre-defining Toyota Prius. And finally now, the thankfully best looking version, which says, I'm a good looking practical car, and oh, by the way, I'm also a hybrid. Yeah, this third gen version of the car is easily the best looking version of the Insight that we've had, but I may go so far as to say that it's actually one of the best looking hybrids you can get. It's great in its understatedness and doesn't scream, yo, look at me, I'm good for the environment, like we mentioned before. It's ridiculously similar to a Civic, and that's a good thing. It does have a sort of sloped hatchback look to it, but don't be confused. It's definitely a sedan with a trunk. There are two trims available, the base hybrid model and this guy that we're testing, the Hybrid Touring. Both come equipped with LED headlights, taillights, and turn signals, 17-inch wheels, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and of course Honda's 1.5-liter iVTEC hybrid, which makes for a total of 151 combined total horsepower and 197 pound-feet of torque, which Honda claim is good enough for 4.9 liters for 100 kilometers. That works out to 48 US miles per gallon. But in our real world testing over a week of combined driving, we found ourselves getting about 6.7 liters per 100 kilometers, which works out to 35 US miles per gallon. The Insight also has a CVT transmission, as you might have expected, and has selectable drive modes. There's Eco mode, which really tries to stretch the mileage out of the tank, normal mode, and of course, sport mode. You can also select how you want the drivetrain to function. In EV drive, power comes from the electric drive motor, provided there's enough charge on the battery. Hybrid uses the gasoline engine to supply the electric power to the drive motor, and engine drive operation connects the gasoline engine directly to the drive wheels. It's all well and good, but really it's just kind of pointless because the car is usually just going to decide what it thinks is best anyway, and then just go ahead and do that for you. It's not too bad of a drive though, fairly tame and balanced. One thing that's notable, and it took me a minute to get used to this, is that usual jump you get away from a stoplight from electric motor torque is absent here. What you do get is a lot of engine noise and not much action. The car pulls along just fine. It never really feels underpowered, but oftentimes it feels like it's working to try to rustle up more power that just isn't there. It's clearly not meant for any type of real spirited driving, and to be honest, that's just as well. That's not what it's built for. The Insight is meant for economical driving that works in real world scenarios time and time again. That said, once you are comfortably up to speed, if you hit the sport mode, then you get a pleasant little kick should you need to pull out and pass, or if you just want to show off. But if you're looking at a hybrid, I'd suspect that performance driving isn't really your main concern anyway. What likely is of concern to you is how much can it fit, and how does it work when loaded down with kids and gear and pets and all the things that you need in your everyday life. And the answer there is that it works well enough. Check out our standardized trunk test. Easily fit the stroller, diaper bag, camera bag, 2 bags of groceries, and a bunch more with room to spare. We're looking at 416 liters back here, which is just slightly less than the base Insight hybrid, which gets 428. Now, this is less than the Toyota Prius and the Hyundai Ioniq, which offer 696 and 750 liters respectively, but both of those are hatchbacks and offer a different kind of look than this, and that's of course the trade-off if you want a sedan. I definitely would have loved to have seen a hatchback or liftback option in the Insight, and we have our fingers crossed that it's something Honda might consider. Inside the cabin, things were spacious enough as well. In our rear-facing car seat test, we measured 30 inches from the back of the passenger seat to the glove box, respectable, and the passengers riding in the back seat should find themselves comfortable enough for a reasonable amount of time. Space isn't huge, but it's nice. The interior of the Insight has a nice level of refinement to it. Leather, this nice white stitching. It reminded me immediately of its bigger brother, the Accord hybrid that we tested a couple of weeks back. Now, this car doesn't have all the bells and whistles that car did, but that's okay. It's in a different class. From the driver's seat, things are typical Honda, well organized, comfortable. The driver's seat gets 8-way power adjustment, and the passenger gets power too, but only 4-way adjustable. The center console here is a little bit disappointing. It's not huge, and I'm not a fan of this sliding cup holder thing. It's another one of these setups that attempts to make the space more configurable and usable, but I just found that when I actually went to use it in real life, I found myself looking for cup holders that have inevitably been moved to accommodate something else. As well, this little dock here for the phone is nice, but it's a bit too small to hold anything else. And I also found myself wishing for USB ports that were more hidden away. With these out here in the open, like it is, it's impossible to leave anything plugged in anytime you walk away from the car without fear that it'll have gone missing by the time you return. In our decibel test, not quite as good as I would have expected. We got about 62 decibels at 100 kilometers an hour, but that is affected by the fact that this vehicle has snow tires on it, so take that into consideration. Infotainment system is not bad. It's like halfway there, some pluses and some minuses. The basics are fine, but it's missing the extra stuff you get in models like that aforementioned Accord. The touchscreen looks good, but I would have liked to have had some more real touch buttons on the side. Navigation using the touchscreen is just so tedious, and having some buttons helps, but would have loved for them to go the whole way here. The steering wheel buttons are laid out well though, and once you get the hang of them, not really a problem. And like we said before, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto come standard on both trims, which is a great perk. There's also a feature here that I want to point out that I actually found pretty jarring. The Insight has a typical backup camera, but also has this passenger side rear view camera mounted on the side mirror. This can be activated while driving by a button on the indicator switch, but it also turns on automatically when you signal to turn right. I guess I get why they do it this way. It makes the most sense to me for when you need to shoulder check for a bike lane, and I guess, yeah, it can be helpful. But when it turns on, it takes over the whole screen anytime you use the signal, and the whole screen changing like that seems like a bit of a distraction to me. And like, how hard is it to shoulder check, you know? And at the risk of sounding a bit like my dad, shoulder checking is a basic skill. We should all know how to do that. And when we start replacing basic skills with things like cameras, it's a bit of a slippery slope. Makes for lazy, less engaged, and less attentive drivers, which is a scary thought. Okay, rant over. Ultimately, the hybrid is a decent enough driver. Its road presence and its performance won't make you jump out of your seat, but we know that's not what it's for. It's cheap enough to run and does a great job blending in with the growing amount of hybrids, PHEVs, and full electrics, and it holds its own as a well-spec'd mid-range sedan. For my family, I think I'd probably prefer the versatility of a hatchback, but if you're dead set on a trunk and aren't willing to go all the way to the Accord, the Insight is a decent option, and it starts at 29,770 Canadian for the base model and 33,670 Canadian for the Touring, which is also significantly cheaper than the Accord. It's like a really normal, well-designed and well-executed, if somewhat uninspired sedan. Think economy, reliability, and professionalism at an entry level. I'd say if smarts and practicality are what you want, this thing has your name written all over it. And it is a Honda, which means it'll probably run forever and still maintain a healthy resale value at the end of the day. Not bad. For FamilyWheels.ca, I'm Scott.